At 10 a.m., the operators inside a Russian command post are casually scrolling through telegram updates, unaware that they are already dead. They just don't know it yet. While they read rumors about the front lines, 100 kilometers away, a single Ukrainian Su-27 is slicing through the morning haze at treetop height, carrying their destruction under its wing. This isn't a standard sortie. It is a defiance of physics and probability. The pilot is flying straight into the teeth of a lethal web. S-400 batteries, S-300 traps, and Su-35 fighters armed with hypersonic R-37M killers. The math says he shouldn't survive. He has to dodge over 10 missile launches, using the curvature of the Earth as his only shield to deliver a JDAM-ER in a window of time measured in milliseconds. One climb will ignite the entire Russian air defense grid. One mistake turns him into a fireball. This is the technical breakdown of how one pilot beat the algorithms designed to kill him. Comment 1 right now if you're ready to enter the cockpit and witness this impossible mission. At 10 a.m., the atmosphere inside the Russian command post is deceptively calm, a digital silence before the storm. The operators are not scanning their radar screens for anomalies. Instead, they are casually scrolling through telegram updates, consuming reports about artillery duels, drone sightings, and battlefield rumors. They are completely unaware that they are seconds away from becoming one more tragic entry in that very same feed. None of them realize that 100 kilometers away, a Ukrainian Su-27 is knifing through the air at treetop height, its wings cutting the morning haze as it carries a JDAM-ER designed to erase their headquarters in a single, precise strike. Everything about the flight is unfolding exactly as the plan is intended. The timing is tight but clean, and the route is mapped down to the meter to exploit every blind spot in the enemy's vision. But in the modern battle space, secrecy is a decaying asset. A previously unseen Russian air defense radar suddenly wakes up somewhere beyond the horizon, and the Su-27's threat receiver explodes with alarms. X-band radiation spikes through the cockpit, an invisible spotlight pinning the pilot against the sky. He sees he is being painted from more than 300 kilometers away. Both AL-31F engines light their afterburners as he banks hard to the left. What was once a controlled strike run becomes an instant contest between cold radar algorithms and desperate missile geometry, a struggle to blend into the terrain before physics catches up. To understand why a single climb can ignite an entire Russian air defense grid, the story has to rewind to the mechanics of the kill chain. None of this is random chaos. It is the result of patterns and probabilities that have been evolving across hundreds of missions. Both sides know the other's habits. Both sides adjust. Both sides learn. The first signal of danger comes from an S-400 battery whose gravestone engagement radar has acquired a firm lock on the Su-27. Inside its control cabin, operators watch the digital track stabilize with terrifying speed. The radar's 2,500 electronic modules steer beams in microseconds without moving a single mechanical part, stripping away the pilot's anonymity. They assign the aircraft to track number 247. Then, a 40N-6E missile launches. 7.5 meters long, it accelerates to hypersonic speed in seconds, leaving the launcher like a spear thrown by a titan. But the missile does not chase the aircraft like something out of an action movie. It predicts. It uses proportional navigation, calculating where the aircraft will be, not where it is. It is constantly solving a geometry problem, updating its intercept point more than 100 times per second. The missile races toward a location physics says the Su-27 will reach if it continues on its current trajectory. The pilot counters by diving to 500 feet, using the Earth itself as armor. The curvature of the planet creates a radar shadow that the S-400 cannot penetrate. At long range, anything below roughly 1,000 feet drops behind the radar horizon. The missile receives its last mid-course update, heading 300, speed 200 meters per second, altitude unknown. Then it becomes a blind projectile guided by probability more than observation. But Russian prediction algorithms do not stop simply because the aircraft is temporarily hidden. They fuse every scrap of data: past track points, terrain, aircraft heading, known Ukrainian tactics, and climb patterns observed in earlier JDAM strikes. Over time, these systems have built a library of Ukrainian behavioral tendencies. The system predicts where the pilot will likely pop up to release his glide bomb. It models likely pop-up points from prior missions and terrain. Meanwhile, the pilot's evasive maneuver burns fuel at a rate that would make any aviator anxious. Down low, in the dense air, the AL-31F engines drink almost 300 kilograms per minute, more than twice their consumption at cruise altitude. The 5 minutes he lost dodging the first missile can mean the difference between landing safely at base or ejecting over hostile ground. Before he can stabilize the situation, a second S-400 battery deep inside Russian territory launches a 48 N-6DM missile. This one is fired at empty sky, not at a tracked target. The operators are gambling with lethal intent. They fire at the altitude and speed window that Ukrainian aircraft must hit to release a JDAM-ER at maximum range. The glide bomb needs about 27,000 feet and roughly 400 knots to travel the full 70 kilometers. Too slow and the wings won't deploy properly. Too fast and the mechanism risks tearing apart. Those numbers appear in the Russian database again and again. So the battery fires not at the plane, but at the physics the plane must obey. When the missile fails to find anything, it self-destructs. A small, pointless fireball with no tactical effect. But the first S-400 continues its pursuit. The pilot escapes that envelope only to enter a new one. He flies directly into an S-300 engagement zone. Its grill pan radar has silently tracked him through his own radar altimeter pulses, tiny 4.3 gigahertz signals that bounce off the ground 50 times per second. The very system meant to keep him from crashing now serves as a beacon for his destruction. 2 9M82M missiles launch. These are not long-range strategic interceptors. They are short-range killers optimized for guaranteed hits inside 100 kilometers. Their boost-sustained motors propel them to Mach 7.5 and preserve energy for terminal maneuvers. Their guidance method is semi-active command. A human operator sits in front of a screen, joystick in hand, flying the missile with steady precision. Command guidance reduces the effectiveness of seeker-focused jamming. It is just a Russian operator making adjustments in real time. The Su-27 dumps chaff and heads toward a ridgeline. One missile operator mistakenly locks onto the larger chaff cloud. The other stays on the real aircraft. The pilot holds his nerve as the ground rushes toward him at 200 meters per second, forcing a confrontation with mortality that few will ever experience. To understand why a single climb can ignite an entire Russian air defense grid, one must look at the brutal logic of saturation. None of this is random. It is the calculated result of patterns and probabilities that have been evolving across hundreds of missions where both sides know the other's habits, both sides adjust, and both sides learn. Suddenly, 3 more S-300 batteries activate, lighting up the electronic spectrum like a forest fire. They fire 4 missiles almost simultaneously, each programmed to intercept from a different angle. It is pure Soviet doctrine. Saturate every possible escape direction to ensure that even a perfect pilot runs out of sky. The pilot responds with sheer kinetic violence, performing a vertical zoom climb from 500 feet to 3,500 feet in just 4 seconds. The sudden vertical change forces all 4 missiles to violently adjust their trajectories. Their guidance beams cross and interfere, causing multiple breaks in the lock. 2 missiles lose their target entirely. One overshoots into the stratosphere, and the last one runs out of fuel trying to match the impossible climb rate. The pilot survives a second time, but his reserve fuel is nearly gone, and the reprieve is momentary. Then, 2 Su-35 fighters arrive from 150 kilometers away, the apex predators of this airspace. Their massive Airbus-E radars lock onto him while still well beyond visual range. One Su-35 fires an R-37M, a hypersonic missile designed to kill high-value aircraft before they can escape. Its dual-pulse motor lets it sprint, then glide, then strike with a final, terrifying burst of acceleration. It receives updates from the launching fighter 10 times per second, closing the distance with mathematical inevitability. The pilot is now faced with a devil's bargain. He must climb toward 27,000 feet. He needs that altitude for the JDAM-ER. Anything lower and the bomb will fall short of the command post. By his calculations, he will reach release altitude in 40 seconds. The R-37M will reach him in 45. He is threading a needle almost no pilot wants to thread, gambling his life on a 5-second margin. At 26,800 feet, the moment of truth arrives. He releases the bomb. The JDAM-ER drops, explosive bolts fire, and its wings deploy for 3.2 seconds. The pilot must hold steady before maneuvering to ensure the weapon separates cleanly. Then the R-37M seeker activates at 18 kilometers. It locks instantly onto the Su-27's massive radar signature. The pilot rolls inverted, pulls 9 Gs, and dumps a chaotic cloud of chaff and flares. The missile whips past just 100 meters overhead. Its proximity fuse detonates, showering the aircraft with fragments. Holes whistle in the fuselage, hydraulics drop, and the right engine spikes in temperature, but it stabilizes. The jet is wounded, bleeding fluids, but still flying. Behind him, the JDAM-ER glides silently toward its destiny. Russian jammers immediately flood GPS frequencies with noise. The bomb switches to an encrypted military M code to fight through the interference. Between GPS updates, its inertial navigation system takes over. INS drift grows 5 meters per minute. At one point, jamming wipes GPS entirely. After 45 seconds, the drift reaches 20 meters. Too much when the target is 30 meters from identical civilian buildings. Then, the bomb reacquires 4 satellites. Reacquisition corrects the accumulated INS drift in a microsecond. The Su-27 drops to 100 feet, fleeing the scene. Fuel sits at 18%, barely enough to make it home if the sky stays quiet. The JDAM's radar altimeter activates at 1,000 feet. It calculates a 72-degree terminal dive. Scene matching confirms the target with 98% confidence based on roof damage. It adjusts 2 degrees left to account for a 50-knot crosswind. At 100 feet, GPS provides one last update. Impact comes at 94 meters per second. The delay fuse waits exactly 25 milliseconds, letting the weapon punch through 3 floors before detonation. Lateral pressure, 10 times what the structure can survive, tears the building apart. Floors pancake in 4.3 seconds. Adjacent buildings survive with nothing more than broken windows. The pilot's flight back over the treetops is quiet, tense, and fueled only by the last drops left in his tanks. He has survived Russia's most advanced missiles, outmaneuvered every system thrown at him, and delivered the single weapon that changed the battlefield that morning. 1 jet, 1 bomb, and 1 impossible mission completed against overwhelming odds. The silence inside the cockpit following the strike is heavier than the 9 Gs that preceded it. The adrenaline that surged during the duel with the Su-35s begins to recede, leaving behind the cold, vibrating reality of a wounded airframe and a fuel gauge that reads like a countdown to a flameout. The return leg is a ghost run. The pilot keeps the Su-27 pinned to the deck, his shadow racing over the treetops at 500 knots. Every sensor is still screaming for attention, but the sky behind him is empty. The S-400 batteries, having fired their interceptors and failed, are now blind, their operators likely scrambling to relocate before anti-radiation missiles ride their radar beams back to the source. The Russian air defense grid, a multi-billion-dollar network of overlapping kill zones, was dismantled not by a swarm of stealth bombers, but by a single legacy fighter, a rusted understanding of physics and the sheer audacity of a pilot who refused to be a statistic. Back at the target coordinates, the dust is just beginning to settle. The command post is no longer a node in a command network. It is a tomb of twisted rebar and silence. The operators who were scrolling through telegram updates about the war are now permanently disconnected from it. They never saw the radar blip. They never heard the scream of the jet. Their war ended in the 25 milliseconds between the fuse activation and the detonation. This mission serves as a brutal reminder that in modern warfare, technology is not a shield. It is merely a variable. The S-400 is not invulnerable. The hypersonic R-37M is not an inescapable death sentence. They are systems defined by logic, and logic can be broken by a human being willing to push a machine past its breaking point. As the runway lights of the home base finally flicker into view through the haze, the fuel counter ticks down to single digits. The landing gear deploys with a shudder, the hydraulic pressure holding just long enough to lock them in place. The tires kiss the tarmac, smoke screeching from the rubber as the drag chute deploys, acting as the final brake on a mission that defied every probability model in the Russian database. The engine shuts down, the turbine whines spinning down into silence, and the canopy opens to the smell of jet fuel and morning air. He has survived Russia's most advanced missiles, outmaneuvered every system thrown at him, and delivered the single weapon that changed the battlefield that morning. One jet, one bomb, and one impossible mission completed against overwhelming odds. This is the reality of the air war over Ukraine, a daily contest where math meets metal, and where survival is measured in seconds and radar shadows. If you want more breakdowns of missions like this, where skill, physics, and strategy collide, make sure you subscribe because stories like this are shaping the future of modern air warfare. And there is much more ahead. As the turbine blades finally come to a rest, the physical battle ends. But the invisible war is just beginning. Technicians swarm the aircraft not just to refuel and rearm, but to extract the most valuable commodity of modern warfare, which is data. Every second of that flight, every radar lock, every jamming frequency, and every micro-adjustment of the evasive maneuvers has been recorded on the mission computer's solid-state drives. This telemetry is the lifeblood of survival for the next pilot who climbs into the cockpit. It will be dissected by intelligence officers and electronic warfare specialists to update the threat libraries, refining the jamming pods to better ghost the frequencies used by the S-400's engagement radar. Across the border, a different, grimmer kind of recovery is taking place. Russian recovery teams are currently sifting through the pulverized concrete of the command post, searching for jagged shards of the JDAM-ER's guidance kit. They are performing a forensic autopsy on their own failure, hunting for serial numbers and chip fragments to understand how their billion-dollar integrated air defense network was defeated by a kit-bashed glide bomb and a 30-year-old airframe. They will analyze the radar logs to understand why the 40N6E failed to predict the terrain masking. They will tweak the gain on the grill pan radars and rewrite the code for the R-37M seeker to recognize the specific chaff patterns used by the Ukrainian jet. This is the relentless loop of measure and countermeasure where engineers fight with lines of code as viciously as pilots fight with missiles. The pilot walks away from the flight line, his flight suit soaked in sweat, his body aching from the G-forces that attempted to crush his spine. He is not a superhero. He is a biological component in a system that demands absolute perfection. He knows that tomorrow, the algorithms will be smarter. The Russian batteries will be positioned differently, the trap will be tighter, and the window of survival will shrink from seconds to milliseconds. Yet, the strategic calculus has fundamentally shifted. For the first time, the enemy realizes that distance is no longer a guarantee of safety. The psychological impact of this single mission ripples far beyond the smoking crater it left. It forces the enemy to keep their radars active longer, exposing them to anti-radiation missiles. It forces them to move command posts further back, stretching their supply lines and slowing their decision loops. The concept of a rear area sanctuary has been erased. This is the true definition of air superiority in the 21st century. It is not about total control of the sky, but the ability to instill absolute terror in the enemy anytime they think they're safe. As the sun sets over the airbase, the ground crews are already hanging new ordnance on the pylons, silhouetted against the dying light. The cycle resets. The physics remain the same, but the stakes only get higher. In this arena, there is no final victory, only the successful completion of the sortie and the quiet, grim preparation to defy the odds once again. This is not merely a story about a pilot surviving a missile. It is a case study in the rapid, brutal evolution of aerial combat, where the margin for error has vanished completely. The Su-27, a relentless workhorse of the Cold War, was never designed to ghost the senses of the S-400, yet here it stands, cooling on the tarmac, a testament to the fact that human adaptability can still bleed advanced technology. But this victory is temporary. The enemy is not sleeping. Even now, the engagement data from this sortie is being fed into neural networks, training the next generation of Russian radar algorithms to recognize the specific vertical zoom maneuver that saved the pilot's life today. The next missile will not overshoot. It will anticipate. This is the terrifying beauty of modern warfare. It is a living, breathing ecosystem of measure and countermeasure where stagnation equals death. We are witnessing a shift in the paradigm of air power, moving away from the era of dogfights and into an era of kinetic chess played at hypersonic speeds. The pilot is no longer just an aviator. He is a systems manager fighting a mathematical war against a remote adversary he will likely never see. The command post is gone, the S-400 battery is relocating, and the Su-35s have returned to their patrol orbits, waiting for the next blip to appear on their screens. The geopolitical lines on the map may not have moved, but the psychological borders have been shattered. Deep strike capability proves that there is no such thing as a safe rear area, and that the long arm of precision warfare can reach into the quietest moments of a morning routine. Every mission like this rewrites the textbooks on suppression of enemy air defenses, proving that with the right combination of electronic warfare, terrain masking, and sheer nerve, even the most impenetrable iron domes can be cracked. As the hangar doors close, sealing the aircraft away for maintenance, the silence returns. But it is a heavy, expectant silence. The board has been reset for tomorrow. If you want to continue exploring the deep mechanics of these operations, to understand the physics behind the explosions and the strategy behind the survival, make sure you are subscribed. We are peeling back the layers of modern conflict one mission at a time, and the next breakdown will take you even deeper into the cockpit. This is the new face of war, complex, unforgiving, and rapidly accelerating. Don't blink.